Hey everybody, we are live. Welcome, and I'm proud to introduce my longtime friend Greg McConnell. Greg, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Jenny, and you?
Hey, I'm great for much better for having you here. It's been too long, man.
It
It's
has been a
outstanding,
while. Sure,
outstanding.
yeah.
Hey, you put out this wonderful survey. Um, Depending on how you look at it, and let's talk about it. And first of all, talk about the findings. What stood out most to you about the survey?
Well, the bottom line of this survey is that Oakland has a public safety crisis, one that warrants and demands the declaration of an emergency so that resources for protecting the citizens can flow into the city. When I say resources, I'm talking about assistance from the governor, assistance from the county, assistance indeed from the federal government, because this crime that we have here is organized crime. And in other cities where they've had organized crime, they've used the federal RICO statutes to assert that those were conspiracies, and a lot of the stuff that's stolen is sold in interstate commerce. So the declaration of emergency would address those issues. But what I found when I did the poll was not only do we have a public safety crisis and emergency, we have a leadership crisis and emergency. And that's not my finding, that's not my word, that's what the public says. Um, we asked we did a survey of 400 likely voters being described as people who had repeatedly voted in recent elections. We made sure that we weren't dealing with reporters or people in the quote "no," as you say, but just regular ordinary voters. There were 400 of them, and when we looked at the results from the demographic study, we found that 65% of those 400 define themselves as being progressives or liberals. Now, when you're doing a public safety poll and 65% are, quote, progressive or liberals, you kind of wonder if it's going to be slanted in any particular direction. Lo and behold, that was not the case. Those people said, we asked those people, uh, what is the number one issue that you're concerned about? And we didn't suggest choices for them to make. We let them do it open ended. 83% reported that they were concerned about public safety and crime. The second largest number was 29% of the people who said they were concerned about homelessness, and 20% or so that were concerned about affordable housing. Jenny, we've been doing polls of likely voters and asking them about issues of concern for 10 years. I've done 20, 25 polls of the same sort. I've never seen a 54-point spread between crime and homelessness, especially with the homelessness problem that Oakland has. So that really told me that people were very concerned. So then we asked the people, well, what do you want your elected leaders to focus on? 92% of them said we want them to focus on reducing crime. Uh, we asked them, did you think that Oakland was going in the right direction? Well, I guess the answer now is obvious. No, 74% said things were going in the wrong direction. 74% said that their quality of life had gone down. But also of great interest was that in this poll, where more almost 2/3 of them were people who identified as progressive or liberals, 74% said that they wanted to see the police force in Oakland go from its current level of 723, which was actually wrong at 713, but from 723 to 1,000. They base that number on the fact that the federal government, FBI, statistic shows that you're supposed to have so many thousand police officers. So many police officers per thousand people of population. And with Oakland's size, that would be 1,000. Now, with Oakland's crime rate, that might be 25,000. But it was eye opening. Our posters reported it exactly that way. So when we got past some of those questions, and there's more that I can answer when you ask me questions.
Sure.
We asked, what do you think about the performance of elected officials? And this is where the crisis of leadership came in. 29%, only 29% said they approve of the job that the mayor is doing. And 57% said that they disapproved. And what is important to note is that you have different categories. You approve strongly, approve somewhat, disapprove strongly, disapprove somewhat. And those categories give you the intensity of the answers to those questions. 32% of the people said they disapprove strongly and 24 somewhat. But only 5% said they approve strongly, and 22 said they approve somewhat. We asked about the city council. 66% said that they disapprove of the job that the city council is doing, and only 17% approved. And again, 38% of that 66% said they disapprove strongly of the city council, and only 3 approve strongly of the city council. So that tells me that Oakland voters think not only do we have a crime problem, we got a leadership problem, and they're not satisfied with the way that that is being handled. We wanted to know also that in addition to having a lot more police officers, one of the things that we believe that drives the crime problem in Oakland is that there's some knuckleheads out there that are going to do wrong because they're going to do wrong. You know it, I know it, everybody else knows it.
Mm-hmm.
You can sugarcoat that all you want, and all the little social programs in the world ain't going to do nothing about that. That's just the way it is.
Yep.
But there are people out there who do that because either they don't have any alternatives, or they don't feel like they have any alternatives. So we wanted to know if the Oakland voters thought that we should focus efforts on creating jobs and job opportunities, and not just tell everybody to go to college, because everybody's not going to go to college. Everybody can't go to college. Everybody shouldn't go to college. So we asked them about industrial jobs. How important do you think they are? 69% say it's critical, very important to create blue-collar jobs in industrial and logistics sectors. And 60% says it is critically important to create jobs that do not require a 4-year college education.
I thought that was most notable.
That really is something, isn't it?
Yeah.
And what also interests me, being that Oakland is in the Bay Area, and the Bay Area is supposed to be this, had this wanderlust for tech. Only 37% of the people said it was critical or important to create tech jobs. Oakland is a blue-collar town. Oakland has always been a blue-collar town. It was created and built on the backbone of that. So many people came to Oakland from the South and from the Southeast to work in the shipyards and what have you. And they did well. They lived well. They bought houses. They thrived. All of a sudden, everybody said, well, we want to have tech. We want to teach everybody how to program, teach everybody how to code. Well, you couldn't teach me how to program or code if we spent the next 20 years doing it.
Oh, I can teach you.
Maybe you could, but not everybody else could then. How's that? But what I'm saying is that it just shows that what people want is the ability to have a good job that pays well, that doesn't require them to go to college, because not everybody can. And that would be a good alternative for the youth and for the people who are out there doing this thing that they're doing because of economic conditions. Zenny, you heard about bipping. Bipping is the process where people break in the car windows and they steal cell phones and computers and all of that. Man, these guys wake up in the morning and they go out on a routine. I mean, it's like the Amazon truck drivers. They got a schedule.
Yeah.
They got to be there on time. They got to go in there. They got to bip. They got to break the windows and what have you. And they do that. And then they take the stuff directly to the fence. As soon as the fence gives them some money, they go back out in the street and do some more. That tells me there's a segment of them that are doing it because of economic conditions. They don't think they have anything else to do. They have no choices. And that's why we added that information about creating jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So long and short of it is that this poll gave us really good information about how people in East Oakland, West Oakland, the hills of Oakland, the flatlands of Oakland, Black people, white people, Asian people, Latino people, rich, poor, they all feel the same way. Crime is completely out of control, completely out of hand. And we don't think in Oakland that the mayor and the city council are exercising the kind of leadership that needs to be exercised to get this arrested.
I want to pull up this document. This has come from the survey and enlarge it. I thought it was quite interesting and fascinating. And it's more of a drill down in the favorables and unfavorables for a number of personalities, starting with the mayor. But we talked about the mayor, but down below, and I'm going to enlarge this as right now. Let me zoom in, and then that's and we'll do it twice more with feeling. Actually, that's probably as good as it's going to get. So let me see if I can slide on over. Okay, but if I go down here, you have. Maybe I can slide that over. If it's not letting me slide over, I have to back out of it because it's not. Let me back out of it a bit, and I'll just name it. Zoom out a bit because it's not at full width. Okay, there we go. All right. You've got the mayor at the top, Councilmember Kaplan, Councilmember Cal, who's headed for the center trying to, Councilmember Bass, Councilmember Fife, Councilmember Rachmanandran, Councilmember Gaio, Jenkins, Reed, Pamela Price, the DA, and the Oakland Police Department. And let's start with them first, because out of them, obviously, the mayor is topped in terms of unfavorable only by the police department. Would that have been different if the Lerone situation hadn't have happened?
You know, before we leave that, the mayor, you're right. Her unfavorable rating is 52%. Her favorable rating is 27%.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I want to point out that you have to look at the intensity of those feelings. Only 8% of the voters think that they were strongly in favor of what she's doing, whereas 29% of the voters were strongly unfavorable, had a strongly unfavorable impression of the mayor. I think the police department, that's an interesting question that I wish we could dig into and hope that we dig into again before much longer. Because I think that part of it is that there's a group of people that don't like police. And some of the negativity you see in this 66 to 26 rating is about some of the people who don't like police. But another part of it is people don't like that the police are not being able to take care of the crime, that you call them and they don't come, that 911 doesn't work, et cetera. And it suggests to me that this number doesn't reflect that people don't like them per se. They don't like what they're doing. And there are a lot of reasons for that. They're understanding. Or not doing, right.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of reasons for that. And the reason I say that is because if police were truly regarded unfavorably by 66% of the people in Oakland, they would not be talking about increasing their ranks from 723 to 1,000.
Right. Right.
So we're gonna. This is a poll is a snapshot in time. We're going to drill into this more. This is something that the McConnell Group, and you're the first to hear this, the Oakland Independent Political Action Committee, which I'm founding, have founded, or signed the papers for.
Oh,
We'll be looking into this quite a bit.
so it's the new Oakland Independent Political Action Committee.
Yeah, OIPAC.
Why is it called Oakland Independent as opposed to something else? Why the Independent strikes me as are you saying not a Democrat anymore?
What I'm saying is that I think people are kind of sick and tired of the abuse that we've experienced under some Republican regimes, the promises that we've been told by the Democrats and not delivered upon. I think that the movement of the country, I just believe this is going to be going middle of the road, independent. People are going to be doing their own thing.
Mhm.
I think that the other reason I want to talk about independent is because when we did the polling, we looked at the demographics of who was a Democrat, who was a Republican, who was progressive, who was liberal, who was moderate. We saw all of these things, but we saw these independent thought processes that resulted in these statistics. So,
if I may want to get this right, Oakland Independent Political Action Committee, is that correct?
yes.
Okay, because I'm writing this on Twitter.
Okay.
OIPAC.
Yeah. OIP. OIP.
OIPAC.
Yeah, I'm not very clever with acronyms.
It's something weirdly futuristic. Whatever. That's but then I'm a trekker, so go figure. At any rate, it's now on Twitter. It's announced as hey, breaking news there. A new pack.
But let me go also back to your original question about with the shocking thing that we see in these polls year after year after year after year is that people who live and work and breathe within a block of City Hall and know all of these people really well, but people outside of the City Hall echo chamber, they don't know who these people are.
Thank you. You took
that column that says no opinion because I've not heard of. Dan Cobb, 37. Nikki Bass, 43. She's the council president, 43%. Carol Fife, she's the 44%. Janani Ramachandran, 51%. Now, I give her a little bit of a break because she's new.
Right.
But Noel Gaio, who's been there forever, 43% never heard of him. Kevin Jenkins, again, I give him a little break because he's new, but 54% don't know who he is. And Treva Reed, 40%. So people don't really know the council members that are doing the work that they so strongly disapprove of.
But they know, but having said that, look at Rebecca Kaplan.
Yeah. Well, Rebecca Kaplan's run for doggone near every position that you can think of. And if you look at Rebecca Kaplan's, only 17% say they don't know of her. So that means 73%, I guess, do.
Right.
Math is right.
Right.
Or 83%. I don't know. But the other thing about Rebecca that's interesting, every poll I've ever done, Rebecca Kaplan has a favorable, unfavorable rating that's almost 50-50. Here it's 32% favorable, 30% unfavorable. I think that people look at Rebecca as a very smart woman, interesting woman. Somebody described her as the Fonzie, you kind of like her with the little hat on and all of that.
Yes.
It always comes up, right about that rate of favorable to unfavorable. Now, that doesn't mean they like her policies. That doesn't mean like they like her votes. That doesn't, and that's borne out by the fact that, she was not recently elected to
Right.
supervisor, and she has won her position as at large. Anyway, I don't want to dwell on Rebecca, but I
No,
just
you have
since you
give
brought it up,
in full disclosure because I think it's well, it personally impacted me. Rebecca came through for me at a time very recently when I didn't know what was happening because the pandemic income dropped, but I was due a substantial amount of money from Housing is Key that my landlord said, "Hey, sign up for this because you know it's you're helping your mom in Georgia. You're going back and forth, and it's hard." And I did, and then they turned around and said, "Well, hey, you're not in our jurisdiction." And so Rebecca came in. I contacted her 2022, and she and her aide went to work and fixed it. But then the money still wasn't coming out, so uh, I texted her last week and saying, "Hey, this is a gigantic problem." And within 24 hours, actually less than that, the very next day, I got a contact from Bay Area Community Services, and they got it all straightened out for the entire amount. Actually, more than that, but it was the right amount, and it got it to my landlord. And I have to just applaud Rebecca for that
yeah,
because
and I'm going to give you that, man, because I have personally endorsed Rebecca in various races. I have raised funds for Rebecca. Because people say, well, when I was representing the Jobs and Housing Coalition, which is major developers and major
Mhm.
employers, people say, well, that group wouldn't like Rebecca. Why are you doing that? I said, because Rebecca is somebody I've always been able to talk with, negotiate with, try to figure out things, and she's smart as a whip.
Yeah, oh yeah,
So, I'm not, I'm not opposed to her in any way, and I'm not surprised to hear what you just said
yeah.
about how
I
she
was
helped
so
you.
lucky she thinks she's so smart that she knows sports economics and development better than I do.
Well, she knows the development of sports economics. How's about that? How about that?
She's in the right church. We just gotta get her a right pew. That's another
There you
story.
go. All right, all right, all right.
Moving along, I'm curious to find out on this chart, which you can go to actually zenireport.com and just scroll down a little bit. You'll see the mayor's face along with the headline, and this scribd document is within it. So you can pop it out, download it at your leisure. But at any rate, what I find fascinating about it is you also have right here, as I circle the cursor, at number 16 down, you have former Councilmember Taylor, Carl Chan, who was at the event yesterday for Lake Cheval, Bishop Bob Jackson, Cynthia Adams, the NAACP of Oakland, the aforementioned Chief Armstrong, and Annie Campbell Washington. So take us, why that series of Oakland political personalities?
Well, Lauren is the easy one. I mean, he lost the election by 622 votes, or something in that neighborhood. If I'm not
677.
okay, 670. I knew it was in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
Margin of error, man. uh, but I think that they won that election. Sheng won that election because of ranked choice voting.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
I
Yeah.
think if that had been a heads up, if that had been the traditional way where you get the two top runners, neither one has 51%, then you have a runoff. I think Lauren would have defeated her.
Well, I
So I
don't know
just wanted to see how people felt about him today.
if I may. I don't know if you recall, but I interviewed Tim Dupuis for about an hour and 30 minutes in what we both designed to be a TED talk on how ranked choice voting and the voting process works. And he admitted in my interview that the way the ranked choice voting count was done implied that there was a discrepancy.
Yeah.
He
Well,
said,
we tried to get a recount done on that. NAACP and several other groups, Carl and clergy and what have you. And the county, told us it would be $30,000. And we said, okay, well, we can raise that. Then they told us it'd be $50,000. So, well, we can raise that. Then they told us it'd be $12,500 a day. And they
Yeah.
didn't know how many days that would be. And we said, well, we can't, nobody can do business like that. So fortunately, I believe that Nate Miley and David Halper and, oh man, I'm having a senior moment.
Wilma Chan, rest in peace.
Yeah. And Keith Carson, I think that they're going to put something together to do an automatic recount when there's such a small number. And I think also there's a lot of people who are going to be looking into this ranked choice voting thing. I think that the local branch of the NAACP has asked the national NAACP to study it to see if it has a negative effect on minority voter participation, et cetera. It's a system that you can easily play a game with, and they know how to do it better than the other side of the street. But we wanted to ask about him. We also wanted to ask about Carl Chan because, he's getting beat up, by the mayor and some of her followers, and they're throwing mud at him and what have you. And, Carl's been an honorable guy trying to help Chinatown forever. And so we wanted to get a shot so that we would know what his favorable, unfavorables were. Bishop Bob is similarly, he's been, along with Cynthia Adams, they've been writing the letters that have drawn national attention, and thank you for assisting in that.
Mhm.
But it's been, they have brought a nation to know what's going on in Oakland, what the crime looks like, and what Chief Armstrong was, and what he tried to do. So that was why we included both of them. And then Armstrong. This poll was conducted before the word came out fully, certainly before it came out fully, that he had been completely exonerated by the retired federal judge who said this man did nothing wrong that warranted his termination from office.
Right.
Everything he said from the very beginning, he says, I've done nothing wrong. I should be the police chief. And I think as the story came out and more people realized that since his firing in January of 2023, that's when crime skyrocketed. The worst crime we've had in Oakland, maybe forever, record levels, has happened in 2023. What happened in 2023? The police chief got fired.
Yep.
And fast forward, he was completely exonerated, as he said he would be. And it brings to mind the question, what is the underpinning of all of this from the very beginning? So Armstrong has a future in Oakland to do whatever the hell he wants to do. If the Police Review Commission is talking about recertifying him as a candidate for mayor. For police chief. We've been told that the mayor won't do that. I think that would be yet another mistake of hers. It was a mistake to fire him.
Why is she so hard-headed?
Because she is who she is. It goes back to something you told me, another gentleman told you. I won't mention his name unless you can if you want to.
Right.
That what he noted in her in 2021, well before she became mayor, that
this person told me she became a monster.
Yeah.
And I've said that before. I made a special video about it because I compared her. I'll say this, and I'll say this so you can see my face because I don't hide from it. But I said that she became Tracy Flick. Tracy Flick was the titular character played by Reese Witherspoon in the movie Election. just desperate to win, would pull down your posters if she saw them and just throw a hissy fit and all that stuff, right? And Sheng has played that role to a T. Just and we've never seen that before. That we've never seen that before.
Well, the two people that Sheng hates the most right now are Carl Chan and me. And that's in part because Carl Chan and I are both pointing out the problems that we're having with public safety, and we're both pointing out, the lack of leadership. And she's even accused me and he of, preparing a recall election on her, et cetera. I haven't done that, but it's.
Oh, she hates Seneca Scott too, by the way.
Yeah, but I don't want to put myself in the category. I associate with Carl. I'll leave it there. But
Okay.
But the problem is that if I were mayor and if I had two people that I identified as enemies of mine politically, and they are supporting an issue that most people in Oakland care about, I wouldn't want to steer clear of them. I'd want to bring them into my office and say, all right, how do we work together to get this done? Because it's more important that we have a successful city, because if we have a successful city, then I have a successful administration, et cetera.
Right.
But that's not what's going on. It's fighting. I mean, it's like having the conflict that she had publicly with Manfred, the commissioner of baseball, and then saying, I want an expansion team brought to Oakland. It ain't going to happen.
No. Hey, we already lost the WNBA, as if we were ever going to get them, but
Where they're going to San Francisco?
Well, yeah, because the Warriors have the rights. So Joe decided to exercise them because, hey, that's more activity, more money for Chase Center, more value, and so it's only logical to do that. So you also have Annie Campbell Washington on this.
Annie is a former city council member.
Yes.
There was rumor that I did not confirm, but since it was a rumor that I heard, and since we had room for this question, that she may have aspirations to be a mayor. And I just wanted to say, okay, well, let's see what you look like to the voters. And what I noticed is that, man, she's been out of office for 6 years?
Yeah.
And 59% of the people haven't even heard of her. So if she does have aspirations and she's going to try to get in 26, she's going to have to do a whole lot of work on this.
Oh, Greg, I want to make a quick point about that. The most likely voters generally are voters who are over 35, right?
Let me see.
Let me know about that. Here's where I'm going with this. People over 45 are more likely to get their news from standard television and cable than on this device, even though that's changing, And so my thought is this largely reflects people who get their news from standard television, even though standard television does show up on, for example, YouTube, but not everywhere, okay? As opposed to homegrown videos or anything that's not of a K variety, like KTV or KRON. You know what I mean?
Well, I can tell you I don't know. We did not ask that question specifically about where you get the info. I have done that in the past, and I'm going to start doing that again because I think it's important. But and I answer your first question. 75% of the people that we polled were between the ages of 35 and 65. 25% were under 35. I can give you the demographic breakdown,
Okay.
the age breakdown. So let me just go through it real quickly.
Sure.
Under 35 was 25%.
Hmm.
35 to 44 was 22%.
Hmm.
45 to 54 was 16%.
Hmm.
55 to 65 was 14%. And over 65 was 23%. So I think you're right. I mean, typically, generally speaking, I guess you could say the majority, the vast majority are over 35.
Hmm.
If you wanted to break it at, say, under 45 to plus, you would find that 47% are under 45 and 53% are above 45.
And
Uh,
it's notable because you have to do something if you're going to come back in politics to make sure that you're visible. I mean, Jerry Brown was the best example because remember he started that radio program
mhm.
and that got his visibility up at a time we didn't have the internet. The internet was really just getting going in 94 and then didn't really get going until 98. Uh, so today, if you don't have a presence, if you're not saying something, what you wind up with is what Annie's experiencing. And now, in fairness to Annie, she's dean at the Goldman School, or I believe assistant dean. I don't want to take although she should be dean, but the whole point is you don't want to take that away from her. But why not include, because you have Lauren there, but I'm curious, why not include another up and coming candidate as opposed to them? It begs the question as to who, right? But like I just interviewed Salika Thomas, and you may not know her. She's running for at large, right?
I don't know her.
Yeah, I just interviewed her. Quite quite a powerfully fascinating personality whose rise is born much like Shang of tragedy, but Oakland tragedy in her case, uh, murders that are done to her relatives. You
Uh,
know, that's one, and then of course we have Harold Lowe, who jumped in at the last minute, right? And I told Harold that he was victim of CP time. He got mad at me. but, but you start that late, someone's got to say something. He just jumped. But you and I have both known Harold for a long, long time. Shouldn't his name be here as well, just to see, what his power is? Yeah.
well, we certainly, will be doing more polling. And, so it's a long way out before the next mayor's election, unless somebody comes along and tries to do an effort that happens midterm.
Yeah.
And then you need to know a lot more about a lot of different people sooner. But there was no thought given to excluding Harold or the other lady that you mentioned, or including anybody. It was just
Mhm.
these were people who came to mind and who I had been talking to about other kinds of issues. Annie did a really good solid for me because we wanted to make sure that this public safety issue was one that was not just coming from the African American community and NAACP, but it was something that was ubiquitous and it needed to be something that came from all segments of Oakland. So Annie arranged for me to be able to come in and talk to a group of white women from the Montclair neighborhood. And I found that, for the longest time, I found that uh, I thought of them as quote unquote limousine liberals, everything's okay as long as it stays down the flats. And that is just such an unfair characterization of them. They were really well versed, intelligent,
And the other question I have for you is, in doing this survey, what did you find out that you didn't expect?
One of the shocks was that so many people who identified as progressives and liberals felt the same way as people who, as everybody else in town felt. Another thing that was surprising to me was that I asked the question. It was a kind of last minute spur of the moment question that crossed my mind. And I asked, have you or a family member personally been a victim of crime? 62% said yes.
Yes. Yeah. That was wild.
That's almost 2/3 of the electorate, Zenny.
Yeah. Yeah.
62%.
Isn't that scary?
It is really scary, man. It
just means that when you walk out the door, something can happen to you. Do you realize that I have to say this because it's shocking to me. I forecast about 2 months ago that we were headed for 405 carjackings by the end of the year. Do you realize we topped 500 already?
Carjacking? We topped more than that.
Carjackings.
Yeah. The other day it was reported that 10,547 cars have been stolen in Oakland. 10,547. And they say that that's more than the number of cars that have been subject to bipping. Well, I think that's a faulty statistics because most people don't even bother to report that anymore because the police won't come and they can't do anything about it. But that's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, in Piedmont, it happens in Piedmont. It happens in Montclair. It happens everywhere.
Yeah.
When you're riding down the highway and people get shot.
Yeah.
Innocent kids. A lady sleeping in her home. Bullet flies in and kills her. That. But when they said 62%, that shocked me. I'll tell you what else. It didn't shock me, but it bothered me tremendously. Have you considered moving out of Oakland because of crime? 55%.
Yeah.
Has crime caused you to shop in Oakland more or less or made no difference? Less, 48%.
Mm-hmm.
Has it caused you to stop going to restaurants in Oakland? More or less or indifferent? Less, 49%. So when you see Carl's group of people protesting yesterday and saying, we are victims of crime, they're breaking into our places, but more importantly, people are not coming, even when nothing has happened in my store or in my restaurant. Those two numbers tell you why. Imagine, man, 49% of the people say that they go to restaurants fewer times than they used to. Those restaurants can't be sustained when that many people are choosing not to go out. It doesn't say they never go out. It says that they go out less. That's why those businesses are closing. That's why Le Cheval has closed. That's why Kingston's 11 has closed.
This is you were here yesterday. I'm showing this video from the Le Cheval event. You were here yesterday. What'd you think of this? Right?
I thought it was well done. My hats off to Carl for bringing this together.
That's Carl Chan, folks.
Carl Chan, and hundreds of people decided to close their businesses either for a couple of hours or all day. But the thing that I said during that rally that struck me was that Le Cheval for everybody in Oakland knows Lake Sheng Thao. And it is a place that has been in business for 38 years. That means that it made it through Oakland's crack epidemic. It made it through Occupy Oakland and all the riots that occurred as a result of that, many of which came right down that street. And they made it through the pandemic, but they can't make it through the public safety crisis that we have today.
Greg, I remember, and I'm sure you do, I remember when it opened and how much of a signal it was for what was happening with downtown with Old Oakland and everything else, right? And there was a time where if you were asking a woman out on a date, you had to take her to Lake Sheng Thao, you know, just, you know, still a bachelor. But the whole point is it was representative of the fun Oakland. I say it just like that because, Greg, it seems like, why does it seem to me like we've systemically taken the fun out of our city?
Well,
No
look at it.
right?
No, it's not seem, Zenny, it's actual. I mean, look at it. I mean, when Jerry Brown started with the 10K plan, and then the developers and major employers came in, before then, you could not buy a hamburger between 14th and Broadway all the way up to Broadway and Grand Avenue. You had to go to Lucas, and Lucas wasn't always about. Then all of a sudden, we started having restaurants opening up everywhere. Oh gosh, I'm drawing a blank. The Pecans, Ozumos. You know, you had stuff down on the waterfront, but look at it now, man.
Yeah, it's going.
The only thing down, you know, Scott's is open, but that other store, that restaurant that was there forever, closed. And
across the street from it, across
in Boca Nova and all those Kincaid's.
And
Boca Nova and all those places come and go and come and go. But if you drive up and down the street now, and if you're in downtown Oakland during lunchtime, you don't have any choices. I mean, many of the restaurants that open at night don't open during the day, and even like Fountain Cafe, that salad bar place that in City Center, closed. Now, part of that was the pandemic, but the question is, the pandemic is over, and we're trying to come back to life, and we're coming in with another epidemic of different sorts, one that scares the hell out of people.
But that begs the question to me. Why do we assume that because the pandemic is over, the money is already back, as opposed to what I see is the money has left? And I don't mean just in terms of out migrations, but people just having their incomes cut, you know, for various reasons, or knowing somebody else that had their income cut, right? And so, however, we have AB 464 Mullen, which was signed into law in 2021, which allows us to use tax increment financing to then float a bond issue and use those proceeds specifically to help businesses negatively impacted by the pandemic. That is in writing. And yet I had Bobby Lopez on, who you may know, talking about it. It's just a few weeks after it was passed, because, you know, I've been a big proponent of using tax increment financing to do that. And would you believe we still haven't used it? In fact, we've never used tax increment financing at all since it was brought back to life by Governor Brown in 2015. Why is it that we are allergic to using our linchpin tool of the past, if you will, that, as Henry Gardner once told me, allowed us to clear out crack houses in East Oakland in 1983? Why don't we use it now?
I can't answer that question. I don't know. And I mean, I'll give you another one that I can answer, is that, you know, Governor Newsom came up with $247 million to help cities with organized retail crime theft. And San Francisco got 17 million, San Jose got money, Paso Robles got money, I mean, cities large and small and everywhere else got money. Oakland didn't get a dime. Why? Because it didn't put the application in on time.
But that actually was related to
It might be related to your question. They just don't do it
in a different way. Yeah, we didn't do it. And we have this idea, and this is why I think, for example, I'm the person that gave Dave Cavell, he'll tell you this, the idea to use tax increment financing for Howard Terminal, right? But this is why I believe we slow rolled it then. Libby came on my show. In fact, I'm going to play you this. You got to hear this, okay? Because a lot of people, haven't seen it. Some people have, but I'm fond of playing it because right encapsulated in this discussion that she and I had, I believe, shows you what's happening that we're experiencing today, and it really should be talked about. This is Mayor Sheng telling me in an interview July of 2021 that we, or the city of Oakland, does not have the talent, okay, I'm paraphrasing, to use tax increment financing. And I'm going to play it right now. It's only a 3-minute and 37-second exchange. So for those of you who are accustomed to my annoying long-windedness, this is not that. But here it is. You got to see this, Greg. This is wild. Here we go.
Second question has to do with a really nagging tax increment financing issue. The council doesn't understand that we don't have a full 45-year tax increment read with an explanation of the bond issue, the debt coverage ratios, and then that could frame and should frame your conversation with the athletics and the community. There's enough to help the community, but that's not happening, and the numbers that are there by that same gigantic errors. So there's a number of errors here that really need to be straightened out. I'm asking, are you open to straightening those out? And can you explain the resolution issue? Thank you, Ms. Mayor.
Denny, with respect to the tax increment financing, because that our traditional tool of redevelopment is no longer available to cities, it's made this project much more complicated. We are proposing to use a new tool called the Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District in combination with a community financing district. These are relatively new tools that have not been used extensively, but they have been used somewhat, and that is what we're proposing to do. The full details, as well as additional analysis and economic projections, will be available as we move towards the development agreement, the DA, the binding agreement. And we are excited about ensuring that these are project generated revenues. These are revenues that, but for the project, the city would not have. And so we want to be clear, because people are talking a lot about what is the public investment. These are dollars generated by the project itself. And these tools, like an Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District, were designed to allow cities to bond against these revenues so that we can make the improvements that will create much larger revenues.
Mayor Sheng's claim is that Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District legislation is new. It's not. It was signed into law November 12th, 2014 by California Governor Jerry Brown and lauded as a new power tool for growth in California. It's just that the mayor wasn't aware of it, and neither was Oakland Athletics president Dave Cavell until I made him aware that this was available for use for tax increment financing on 4th of April of 2017 during a 4:00 phone conversation. On the 14th of October 2009 came Senate Bill number 293, specifically designed for Howard Terminal and related to infrastructure financing districts, specifically Howard Terminal. SB 293 Skinner. That's right, and especially designed tax increment financing law for the city of Oakland and for Howard Terminal. In fact, this reads, the city may wish to establish an IFD.
I'll stop right there, but you get the idea. And the point I'm making is Libby was talking to a guy who's done it for 37 years, right? And didn't enlist me or anybody else. Ezra Poor died. And yet saying, hey, look, we don't have the staff for it. And yet it's been around since 2015. Kind of dysfunction. And I'm asking you a question to get this question. Is this born of strong mayor? You know, are politicians too far out there and we're burying public professionals?
Well, we had a lot of people talk badly about Jean Quan and her mayoralty, but during Jean Quan's administration, she had
Fred Blackwell.
She had really good staff. She had
Yes.
very talented people, a lot of really good people. And so even if the elected official was, not the sharpest knife in the drawer, she was sharp enough to hire good people. She was smart enough to do that. And I always respected Jean for that. I absolutely did.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know why we don't have or didn't have,
but let me push
on an ongoing basis, the ability to get those things done.
Let me push back a little bit because, lives are not promised to us. Why do we have to have a Russian roulette, positive way and hope that maybe we elect somebody that, hey, can hire the right people, as opposed to we had a council manager form of government and at least we knew we were getting a trained city official who understood the range of approaches that caused Oakland during that time to be an innovator in public financing worldwide. We created the sale leaseback. Oakland did. We went from that to today. We are a laughing stock around the country. And that's not by accident. That happens by structure. So I'm saying, why don't we just simply start all over again with strong mayor, because it's not getting us what we want?
Well, strong mayors come in two ways rather. A mayor that's strong because the law is strong, a mayor that's strong because he or she is strong. Our law is not as strong as it should be or could be. And our mayors, with the exception of Jerry, have not been personally as strong as we would like them to be. So I think that part of what we need to do is we do need charter reform, but we also need to look very much more carefully about who and where and how and why we select who we do. Zenny, I'm going to say this, there's a lot, if you look at our poll, it even shows,
Sure.
when you look at the demographics, the voting population of Oakland is extremely educated.
Yes, absolutely.
They have, bachelor, between some colleges and all the way up to postgraduate, you're talking about 90% of the population. Bachelor's degree, 33%, postgraduate, 33%. That's 66% of the people who graduated from college or went on into professional higher learning. So we've got the people with the talent. We've even got the people a lot with income to make things happen. We just haven't pulled all that together. That's one of the reasons we're talking about the Oakland Independent Political Action Committee, to start trying to address that as well. Zenny, you're really good with your time here, and you're very generous with your time here. And I don't know how long you're planning for this to.
You're the boss, so we can go as when you can. I think within reason, another 10 minutes.
Well, if you insist, I just wonder if the people are getting sick and tired of looking at my ugly mug.
No, the reason for this format is because other people don't do it, and yet there's a hunger for long form. And we can take parts of this and make new videos of it, right? So it's extremely valuable to have this kind of format. Uh, it's the new television, if you think about it.
Right.
But all that aside, and back to the main course, there's something that is gnawing at me that I thought maybe wasn't appropriate, but now, upon reflection 6 times during our talk and listening to you, I realized that it is. Why do I perceive a heightened level of black on black criticism and crab barrelism as reflected by that former NAACP member versus current NAACP member attack, which I thought was shameful, and Walter Riley calling two, great gentlemen, Terry Wiley, and now I did vote for Pamela Price over Terry, but my nothing against Terry, just all right, but so blame me. But the whole point is, but I like Terry a lot, but um my point is Walter Riley called them losers on television, and I thought that was shameful. And I couldn't believe it. I just played the he did say that. And that's when I believe that I'm happy to be wrong about what I'm about to say. Okay. That we as a group in Oakland are headed downhill when we start pulling each other down faster, not helping each other, not banding together. Uh, this is a great example of the opposite of that, of course. But I hated what I saw from that group,
Well,
and I'm
yeah.
disgusted.
It was interesting because they said they wanted to call on the state NAACP and the national NAACP to rein in the current leaders of the NAACP, and the state issued a letter saying, rein them in. We support exactly what they're doing. This is done. And the national, those guys don't speak for us. The sin and the shame of it is that as the wild crime is occurring throughout the city of Oakland, it is more violent on average in the Black community, perpetrated in the Black community by Blacks. I've been around long enough, I've been around long enough, and I can say it. Black people that hurt Black people are not good people to me. And Black people who hurt Black people or Black people who rob and kill and mug and murder and rape anybody ought to be in jail. And I'm not going to be a part of any situation that tries to say, because of things that happen in the history of Black people, that causes them to be violent and all of that. No, hell no, that's bull. There's a part of the Black community that loves continuing to be the victim, because if they are the victim, they're not responsible for their actions. If they are the victim, somebody else has to help them. And that's not what Black people have been about in this country. Between the end of slavery and the 50s, the way Black people grew and studied and got educated and went to college at the historically Black colleges and all of that, they did something that's phenomenal, to be able to crawl out of being property to being people standing up on their own, taking care of their families, taking care of their communities. We had neighborhoods to flourish. We couldn't go to some of the stores and this, that, and the other, so we created our own. And there was the Black lawyer, the Black undertaker, the Black preacher, the Black teacher, the Black butcher shop, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All of a sudden, in my view, all of a sudden, we came in with this great New Deal, and we started getting aid to families with dependent children. But the price of that was that the Black man had to be taken out of the home. And all of a sudden, we started deteriorating. We started being dependent upon government subsidy. We just started to be dependent upon somebody else taking care of us. And we lost our men because they were taken out of the household. Now, that's my view, and people can hate me for it all they want, and they can talk about me badly all they want. But I believe it's the view that most Black people really cherish and really hold true. And I know that that's the conversation, quiet as is kept, that we have around the dining room table at Thanksgiving and at Christmas and when our families gather. That's what we talk about. We tell these kids to go to school. We tell these kids to compete. We tell these kids to be all that they could be, the best that they could be. And now there's this whole movement, diversity, equity, and inclusion, where the equity part is make the strong weak so that the weak won't feel as weak as they are. That's bullshit. We need to make everybody as strong as they can. I'll stand up against anybody, debate anybody. Nobody intimidates me. And I tell that to my kids. So I think that this is a function of that mentality, that I can't, so I don't want to let other people do it. That's what I think about that. Now, I'm not calling them losers or anything like that. I'm talking about self-reliance, self-responsibility. I didn't agree with everything that the Nation of Islam talked about and what have you. But I did agree with the point that they made about self-respect, dignity, etc. Because I think that those are qualities and characteristics that we have to have. I think I should end on
back onto that in a way. Derek Bell who was Harvard professor at the time, made a similar comment. He was a taxi cab. This was roughly 28 years ago. And he recounted that he had, I believe, just been named Harvard professor. Not at that time, but he was talking to the cab driver. And he was saying, just, parenthetically. And the cab driver, who's also Black, said, "Oh, you just made it harder for me." And in other words, he didn't have anybody to blame. But see, I look at it entirely differently. If I have somebody like a Derek Bell, who's Black, who's Harvard professor, or Barack Obama, who is our president, and I think of a very powerful Black enterprise photograph, where it was a photograph of us who worked in the White House. I never saw that before. All lined up, not mugging for the camera, but looking at documents, cell phones, working, right? That was a powerful statement on how, if you have access, your economic value is that much greater, right?
That's right. And the other thing that I would add to that is, I don't look at successful people as somebody who got out and now I'm stuck. I look at them as someone to emulate.
Absolutely.
I want to pattern myself after the characteristics and the qualities that they demonstrated so that they could be successful. I mean, King said it all. I wanted to be a point in time when people look at my children, not based on the color of their skin, but the content of their character. I mean, that is what he meant.
When are you going to do a follow? What are the next steps? Because we still have, this is a doozy that I have to share with you from Nextdoor, which has been the source of not a few examples of the crime problem in Oakland. You may have heard about this one.
Yeah.
Whatever happened to and I'll ask this before we close, but I have to. What happened to our business improvement districts? Because some people have asked me, well, can you spend money to have taxpayer money, our dollars, public dollars, to have additional security? I would say, of course, we've done it for years, right? What happened to our bids? What happened to Melrose financing?
Well, they're not really security. They are eyes on the street. They can report things. They can see things, and they can call 911 and get the same busy signal as everybody else. Somebody asked me not long ago, would one of the solutions be to double or increase the number of ambassadors that are roaming the streets? And I'm saying, well, how effective have they been? And I'm not criticizing those guys, and I'm glad that they have opportunities and employment. I'm just saying that does not deter what is on your screen. And I really believe that we need real police doing real police work. We want them to do it in a constitutional way, or let's just put it this way: we need to them to do it without, hostile racial activity, et cetera. We need them to be officer friendly, here to support, protect, and serve, not to just jump on people. Ambassadors can't do that, nor can the proliferation of security guards that you have all over the city. I mean, neighborhoods all over the city are hiring their own security people to drive around in cars, some armed, et cetera. But I just believe that we're at a point in time where you have to have adequate. When you talk about we want to end crime, it's like you got to stop the bleeding first. You got to stop the harsh reality of violence in the streets first. And then as you do that, you can determine who are the good guys, who are the bad guys, who can you help, who can you save. But first, you got to protect the people. And I don't think that anybody other than the police or law enforcement can do that. And I know some of my friends are not going to like that. But where's it working?
Hey, let's crystal ball going forward. Well, you crystal ball and I'll listen. Where are we going to be? What's going to happen next year? We have an election coming up. We have 5 council members. We've got District 3 up for grabs, District 2 up for grabs.
No, not 2. It's
District one,
all the odd numbers.
1, 3, all the odd numbers. 1, 3, 5, 7.
And
One, 1, 3, 5, 7 at large. That's yeah. Total turnover. What do you think?
I don't know. There's some people in that mix who a lot of people don't like, that I happen to have a good working relationship with. There are people in there that a lot of people do like that I wouldn't want to support at this time. But we're going to be interviewing all of those candidates, and we're going to be interviewing other people who want to run.
Now, Calb is running for Senate, right?
Right. So he's out. His seat will be open. He's said even if he doesn't make the runoff, he's not going to run for re-election. I hear that Rebecca's not going to run for re-election, and I hear that Noel's not going to run for re-election. So the only incumbents would be
Nikki.
No, Carol Fife.
No, Carol
Fife, and Treva Reed, and that's it. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. What did I say? Dan's not running.
Yeah, Dan's Calb isn't running.
And Noel's not running. There's 3. There's 2.
Right. You said Dan Rebecca's not running at large, so that's a new seat. And then you said that, well, yeah, and so those
but
2.
There's a fundamental opportunity to.
You said Noel's not running.
He's told me he's not going to run. Now,
okay.
He could change his mind, but as of now, he's not. So that would be 1, 5, and
what 3.
3 is going to be an incumbent. I'm talking about whether
that's excuse
me. So anyway,
okay, cobwebs fixed.
There's opportunity to fundamentally change things, and we'll see what the voters want to do, and we'll be guided largely by these polls that we've done and more that we'll do, and issues that are raised. But I think that unless.
Does the mayor get recalled?
I don't know yet.
Wait, whoa. Where's the yet coming in? What's going on?
What are people talking about it? I'm not one so far to have talked about it. But there are certainly people who are muttering that. And a lot of people, that I've heard saying, but it's below the surface. It's not any of the major players at this time. But if she doesn't get a handle on this public safety crisis, if she doesn't figure out a way to start showing some improvement, I mean, my God, man, it's been 9 months since Armstrong was fired, and there's still no police chief. And now that he's exonerated, she won't bring him back.
What if she turned around, got religion, and then turned it back? Would that save her job?
It would help.
Yeah.
It would help because I believe that he knows the city well enough to be able to do the things that could, put a halt to some of this activity. That's what's important.
Now, she's still under investigation by the Ethics Commission, right?
I haven't been following that.
But she's still under investigation. Going back to the Leanna Powell situation. Yeah, that's still open.
Well, there's a lot more to be revealed, as they say.
You can say that again. We're gonna have you back. It's a lot of fun.
Let me know. All right, man. Okay.
Hey, stick around in the background. Don't move a muscle, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. Let me, out of fairness to my friend who always shows up to comment, Show Enough says, is that 62% over a certain period of time or the course of their whole lives in Oakland? And I think that's
about the question about having a victim of crime.
Right. I think that's a snapshot.
No, it's that. Let me answer the entire question. It is, have you or a member of your family personally been a victim of crime in the last few years?
Right. That's what that is.
That's 62% in the last few years.
Then he says, from the layperson standpoint, just having the word tax and TIF scares people off. Well, it's a shifting of taxes. I'm glad you said that. All it says is, hey, look, you're paying your tax anyway. But when you pay it normally, it goes to the school district, ART, AC Transit, EB Mud Flood Control District, and the city and the county. But under redevelopment, it goes to the agency. It's used for a bond issue. And it says, classically, it said, hey, you have blight. Here's a program fashioned by us to fix it. Okay. But I need to emphasize something that's a crisis. When tax increment financing was originally created, the federal government was also providing monies to create programs in cities. It didn't matter if it was the block grant program. Now we have nonprofits doing it, and the city has seceded its ability to do this to nonprofits. And so what we get now is we get a staff that has no idea of how tax increment financing works. That's a gigantic crisis, Show Enough. And I say Show Enough, I'm not saying Show Enough, that's his character's name. And then he says, I understand TIF, mostly it's a good idea, but hard to sell to most people. Not really. Thao isn't even a good Tracy Flick. Flick would make sure her homework was turned in with a cover sheet. Ooh. And then he goes on to say, still think it's funny that she says, I don't have the talent, talking about Libby, the very person who has the talent. Yeah. And then he says, isn't Melrose only in 10 years? And my response was no. So thank you very much, Show Enough, for your contributions. Always appreciated. And Greg, I want to have you back with, you know what I want to do? I want to get you and a bunch of Oaklanders in business on at once. That'd be a lot of fun. I've never done that. I've had I've had you, and I've had Phil, and I've had Ignacio, and I've had Elihu, and I've had Donald Lacey, and but it would be fun to get about 10 of you.
Let me know when you're ready. I'll be there.
All right, man. More ready. Hey, like I said, let me shut this down. Hey, everybody, we'll see you. Please like and subscribe, share this. That ends this broadcast.